In this video, we are going to talk a bit more about common multiples. So I have my page organized already. Please put your date at the top and our topic. Today the topic will be finding the least common multiple. As always, we have an essential question that we're trying to work through by watching the video, trying to learn by the end of the video. For this video, the essential question will be, what are strategies for finding the least common multiple? You already know about multiples. In this topic, we're talking specifically about the least common multiple. You'll often see me write least common multiple with the letters LCM, standing for the least common multiple. Multiples, common multiples, right, are the multiples that are shared by two or more numbers. The least common multiple is the smallest of those, right? The smallest shared multiple of two or more numbers. For example, right, we have 3 and 4. They share a lot of common multiples, but the first one they share is 12. We also know that if we kept going, they would have a common multiple of 24, for example. But their least common multiple, their LCM, the smallest of all the multiples they share, is 12. Right? So that's what we mean by least common multiple. There are 3 different situations and strategies for finding least common multiples. We're going to look at each separately, and then you'll have a chance towards the end to apply the strategies. Let's try the first situation. In this situation, I want to find the lowest common multiple of 4 and 8. To do this, I'm going to list some multiples of both 4 and 8. And then I'll compare them. In my list, I can see that they share a couple multiples, but the smallest number, the lowest number on their list that they share is 8. So the lowest common multiple of 4 and 8 is 8. Let's do another quick one. This time, let's find the lowest common multiple of 5 and 10. I'm going to list them out again, and we'll look to see what that lowest common multiple is. When I list these out, right, again, they share a couple multiples, but their lowest common multiple, the one that is the smallest that they share on both lists, is 10. Do you notice anything happening here? Do you see a pattern at all in what we have seen in both of these situations? In these situations, the lowest common multiple is one of the numbers, right? The lowest common multiple of 4 and 8 was 8, which was one of our numbers. The lowest common multiple of 5 and 10 was 10, which again was one of the numbers. Why do you think that is? Do you have a guess? Pause the video and write down your prediction. Why do you think it is that in both of these cases, one of the numbers was the lowest common multiple? If you notice that one number was a factor of the other, you're right. In this case, if one of the numbers is a factor of the other, the lowest common multiple is that larger number. Right? 4 was a factor of 8. 8, our larger number, was the lowest common multiple of both. Same thing for 5 and 10. 5 is a factor of 10, right? And 10, the larger of the two numbers, was the lowest common multiple of 5 and 10. We don't always have numbers where we're comparing multiples and one happens to be a factor of the other, right? There are other situations. So let's try the second situation. In this situation, I want to find the lowest common multiple of 3 and 8. Right away, I know this is different from my last example, right? Because 3 and 8, 8 is not a multiple of 3, 3 is not a factor of 8, right? So this one's already a little bit different. Let's list out the multiples of 3 and 8 and see what we find. When I list these out and I look for their common multiples, I see that the first common multiple that I come across is 24, right? That is their lowest common multiple. So the lowest common multiple of 3 and 8 is 24. Let's try another one that fits this same example. This time let's do the lowest common multiple of 4 and 9. So list out the multiples of 4 and the multiples of 9, and then we'll look and see what the lowest multiple they share is, their lowest common multiple. What did you find for your lowest common multiple? When I look here for my list of multiples, I see that the first one they share is this 36, which means that the lowest common multiple of 4 and 9 is 36. So this is a different situation than we had in the first one, right? The first time we were looking and we saw that there were two numbers. One was a factor of the other. And if we wanted to know their lowest common multiple, it happened to be the larger of the two numbers. That doesn't work here, right? So let's take a moment to see if there's any pattern or anything we notice about these. So why don't we pause the video again and let's write our prediction down to see what it is we think is happening here. Did you notice that in both of these situations, in both of these examples, the lowest common multiple was the product of the two numbers? In the first one, we had 3 and 8. Well, 3 times 8 makes 24, right? And that was our lowest common multiple. For 4 and 9, same thing. 4 times 9 is 36. And again, that was our lowest common multiple. What is unique about this situation? Do you have a guess? Go ahead and add that to your prediction too. So we see here that the lowest common multiple is the product of the numbers, and the reason why is that they don't share any factors, other than the number 1, of course, right? So if you thought to yourself, wait a second, 3 and 8 don't share any factors, neither do 4 and 9, you were right? So in this scenario, if the two numbers don't share any factors, the lowest common multiple is simply the product of the two numbers. It's a nice shortcut, so you don't have to make a huge list to find it. There's one more situation you might encounter. What if we want to find the lowest common multiple of 6 and 8? Let's list out the multiples of 6 and 8 and find their lowest common multiple. A quick look at my list here, I noticed that the lowest common multiple is 24. Lowest common multiple is 24, right? It's the first one that they have in common. Let's do another example from this set. Let's find the lowest common multiple of 4 and 10. Let's list out the multiples of 4 and 10 and see what we find as their lowest common multiple. If I list out my multiples, I see the smallest one that they share, their lowest common multiple here is 20. Right? So this presents a different situation. In this example, or in these examples, the lowest common multiple is neither the product, right, not just multiplying the two numbers together, nor one of the numbers, like we saw in the first example a couple pages ago, right? In these two cases, the numbers share a couple of factors, right? But one is not a factor of the other. So it looks a little different than the other two. So that was a lot, right? We saw 3 different situations that had 3 different ways of finding the lowest common multiple, and they were kind of all over the place. Here, I'm going to just write down our 3 tips, right, so that you can come back and use them on examples later. Lowest common multiple strategy 1 was that if one number is a factor of the other, the lowest common multiple is the larger number. Lowest common multiple strategy number 2, if 2 of the numbers do not share any factors, like our 4 and our 9, the lowest common multiple is the product of the two numbers. 4 times 9, the lowest common multiple is 36. And lowest common multiple strategy number 3, if the two numbers share factors, but one is not a factor of the other, the lowest common multiple is neither one of the numbers nor the product, and you'll have to do a little bit of more legwork to find their lowest common multiple. You can use these tips to find the lowest common multiple when presented with any 2 values. Try one of the 3 strategies on each of these and see how you do. Well, how'd you do? Did you apply the strategies in the right way? Remember, this video was looking at ways that we could find the lowest common multiple. We saw that there were 3 different situations for finding the lowest common multiple. We took a moment and we wrote them all down as one of the last things we did here in the video. Make sure you review those, and hopefully you were able to apply them appropriately here on these examples.